Have you ever found yourself wondering how a classic NBA team might perform in the modern NBA universe? I'm Mike Lowe, and we are going to be doing just that here. We are playing NBA 2K23 here. We're going to be doing some simulations of the modern NBA universe, but we're going to be replacing one team with a classic version of themselves. So let's dive right in and start looking at the first team. Okay, so the very first team we're going to go in and replace is the Lakers, and we're going to be using the 86-87 Lakers. So for reference, this team won the NBA championship in 1987. They finished 65-17. Everything else here is just standard out-of-the-box opening night NBA rosters and so on. The only thing that we're going to be doing is having, as I mentioned before, injuries and trades off. So we're just going to be going through just kind of the standard simulation here, and we'll check back in here when it's done to see how they do, and to see how they do not just in season awards, but obviously in the playoffs as well. Okay, so let's check out the award winners here, and let's see if any 86-87 Lakers make the list. So Magic Johnson, all NBA first team there. And that looks to be it. So not too surprising there, but it's nice to see that Magic would fit right in to the be one of the top 5 players, one of the top guards in 2022-23. If we look and kind of see where the Lakers finished here, they are the number 2 seed in the Western Conference. Now again, the Lakers in 86-87 went 65-17. So here they go 52-30. So a pretty steep decline. Still pretty darn good team. Finished number 2 in the Western Conference, as we just saw. And rest assured, I understand that this is not the best historical Lakers team even. There were teams in the 70s, even teams in the 50s when they were in Minneapolis. But I wanted to kind of take a team that a lot of people will be familiar with, especially with the HBO series this past year and just things like that. So, of course, Magic Johnson here leading the Lakers to a very respectable 2 seed in the Western Conference. Let's see how they do here in the playoffs. And hopefully there's no surprises there for the Lakers. They're into the second round, but they are bounced in the second round by, ironically, Minnesota. So that's what happened there. By the way, if you're curious to see who wins the championship, Timberwolves actually sweep. So a bit of an irony there that the Timberwolves, where the Lakers used to play there in Minneapolis, come through. So if we go in and just look at some season statistics here for the Lakers, you can see here now injuries were off. So we have a lot of players playing in every single game, as to be expected. Magic played in all 82. So did Worthy. So did Kareem. And we can just kind of flip through and just see some of the averages here. And I'll just leave this on the screen for a second for you just to kind of take a look at least at their top playing players and so on. If you're curious to see how those advanced metrics might look, you can take a look at those as well. Let's see if we sort by game score. That's probably a good way to see it there. So yeah, I can just give you a look there, but not bad. I mean, I think the biggest disappointment here is getting bounced in the second round when, of course, in 86-87, it was the start of back-to-back championships for the Lakers. Okay, for our next team, let's jump into the future a little bit here. We're going to go with the 05-06 Miami Heat, who won the NBA championship. They went 52-30. Just to give you a quick look at this team's roster going in, it's got D-Wade, it's got Shaq, and really that's kind of the team, or the names you kind of think of when you think of this 05-06 Heat team. So let's see how they do. Same kind of simulation setup, no injuries, no trades. Let's see if the Heat can repeat in 2023. Okay, so in this simulation, Doncic won the MVP again. We have D-Wade here as the second guard. So again, a second time in a row shooting guard has come from the loaded-in team. Flip through and see if anyone else made it. Again, D-Wade there, all defensive first team. That looks to be it. Now, the team itself was pretty underwhelming. We did not even see them make the playoffs in this setup. They were one of the worst teams in the Eastern Conference. They were 31-51. So there's no playoffs to simulate with this team. They missed it completely. So although D-Wade seemed to have a nice season, the rest of the team just doesn't seem to be, didn't seem to really be pulling their weight, I guess you could say. Let's see here. So minutes per game, you can just see some of the stats there. I mean, holy cow, 36.6. That's quite impressive. No wonder he was on that list there. So it was really a one-man show. Shaq pulling down a double-double each night, but still not enough to get this team even relevant. If we look at advanced metrics here and sort by game score, again, D Wade just an incredible season. I wonder if this is like the highest in the league here. I'm just flipping through the other teams. I mean, Doncic won the MVP at 36. And my goodness, I mean, he was right there, very, very close to winning the MVP himself. Would have been, where are they? They must be, yeah, in order there. So 32.8, again, one of the best players in the league that year, although the team pretty darn bad. So pretty surprising to see a team that won the NBA championship that year in 05-06, not even making the Eastern Conference Finals here in 2022. All right, so let's up the ante a little bit here. Let's go with one of the classic Chicago Bull teams. We are going to replace the current Chicago Bulls with the 1995-96 Chicago Bulls. So a little bit of context there. We all know the Bulls won 3 championships in a row, twice with a 2-year off period while Jordan was retired, where the Rockets won. But this is the first championship of that second three-peat, right? They won 72 games that year, 72-10. By the way, the following year, their second in a row, they went 69-13. So this was probably the best team of those 3 championships there. And that's what we're going to be using here with the Bulls and to see how they do. Hopefully they fare a lot better than the Miami Heat team that we just looked at. So there you can see Jordan, Pippen, Rodman, of course. I mean, this is a pretty deep team. And they did a lot of winning that year, first of 3 championships, as we mentioned. So let's see how the 95-96 Bulls do here in 2022. Well, if there's one consistency we've seen so far, is that Luka Doncic is the MVP every single season, it seems like. So let's see if we have any 95-96 Bulls appearing. We do. Scottie Pippen, second team All-NBA. You're noticing Jordan is not first or second team All-NBA. That's surprising. He ends up on the third All-NBA team. Pretty wild. Also the All-Defensive team, Pippen and Jordan both. So again, pretty solid individual performances there. Let's see how they did as a whole over in the Eastern Conference. Let's see. So they are in the playoffs as the number 2 seed. Let's look at the team overall. They went 55-27, so a pretty steep drop to the team that ended up winning 72 games in 1996 there. So very interesting. The Hawks, I mean, really the whole Eastern Conference wasn't great this year, with the Hawks being the number 1 seed at 57 wins. So even in a kind of a weaker Eastern Conference where you have teams at 45 wins making it in, it's pretty surprising to see. Or I shouldn't say 45. That's not bad. I guess the top isn't very heavy. No team even got to 60 wins. So every team in the playoffs has at least a winning record. So it was a deeper Eastern Conference, but still surprising to see the Bulls struggling this much after winning 72 games with this exact roster here in 96, or at least pretty close to this exact roster. So let's see how they actually do in the playoffs. Let's get the Bulls on screen here so we can see them, and we will simulate the playoffs. Get through the first round, they get through the second round, they get through the third round as well, I saw. So they're into the finals. This is our first simulated team here that have made it. We have the Timberwolves in the finals again. And the Bulls get the job done. So although they were a little bit underwhelming in the regular season, they step up when it matters most. Jordan gets the MVP there with 0 minutes played, 0 games played, 0 points per game. You get the idea. That's kind of an interesting screen right there. I'm not quite sure why it's like that. But the Bulls come through. They are our first, I guess, repeat champions. I'm not sure what to call them. But they do it here in 2023, just like they did in 1995-96. Now, a couple years later, after the Bulls won 72 games in 96 and won the championship, they were back in the finals for a third time, and they were facing the Utah Jazz. So we're going to replace the Utah Jazz here with their team from 97-98. This will be our first non-champion team, but it's a team that was really, really loaded. Just had a really, really excellent roster, of course, with Karl Malone, John Stockton, Hornacek leading the way. And again, a pretty deep roster here, but they never won a championship together. And so let's see if they can maybe reverse that here in the 2022-23 season. Well, there's our MVP again. Let's see if any Jazz made it here. So Karl Malone, first team All-NBA. That's it for the All-NBA teams. Malone also makes first All-Defensive team. And that's looking like it's it there. So how did the team do in the Western Conference? Well, they're the number 3 seed. They'll be playing Dallas there. So Doncic's Dallas team, who finished a 6 seed. The team itself for the Jazz, they finished 49-33. So again, not great, not terrible by any stretch. They went 64-18, by the way, in 1997. So again, a noticeable drop here, much like we saw when we simulated the Bulls just a couple years earlier. So still really good teams, but it's interesting to kind of see those teams struggle a little bit and perhaps keeping up with the modern NBA. But let's see how they do in the playoffs here, because the Bulls did much, much better. They barely get out of the first round, and they are definitely not as lucky there in the second round. So the Jazz are bounced pretty early in 5 games there by the number 7 upset team, who also upset Minnesota, who we've seen won a few championships here in this video. But Utah's upset there by the number 7 seed. Poor Utah. They just can't get it done here, even in our little test simulation. By the way, Memphis wins the championship there. So let's do another team. Oh, and actually, before we do that, we forgot to look at the season stats here. So if we go and just search by minutes played here, just kind of their standard stats, you can see John Stockton just 30 minutes, 14 points a game, but 11 assists per game there. Pretty impressive. Malone, huge season for him, 29-point average, 14.5 rebounds. Excellent season. Advanced metric-wise, we look at game score. Again, Karl Malone, very, very impressive, 27.4. Stockton at 16.6. Now, we're going to be taking a look at a classic Boston team here in a second. And first, I just want to say that, I understand that there are a lot of teams here that we could still get to, and not every single team is going to make it into this video. But if this is the sort of video that you're interested in and you want to see more of, let me know. I think it'd be really even cool to kind of load up like an entire conference of teams like this, or maybe take a classic team for each team and see what kind of the best classic team really is in the game. We could definitely do some things like that. And I'm really trying to avoid picking teams that have like current players. So you might be saying, well, what about the Warriors? They've had some great teams over the years. Yeah, certainly. I mean, more recently, they've had the best teams ever as we look at the last, 10 years or so in the NBA. But I wanted to kind of avoid having players like player duplicates and things like that. So that's why I haven't really dug deep into the Warriors. But rest assured, there's some great teams there. There's more great Lakers teams. We'd even touch on the 76ers here. And there are a lot of really, really good Boston teams. But I think a team that it would be really interesting to look at here with Boston is going to be this 07-08 team. And there's just a lot to see here. This might be the deepest team that we're going to be running a little test sim with here. Garnett, Pierce, Allen, Rondo. I mean, these are just 4 all-star players, Hall of Fame players here, who are just absolutely dominant players here and could very well be dominant players in even 2022-23. So let's see how this classic champion Celtics team does in 2023. Speaking of other videos that we should make, maybe we should load the 2022-23 Mavericks into a previous decade or era and see if Doncic continues to win the MVP. Totally crazy. Dallas hasn't had a ton of success per se in these simulations, but he has won the MVP every single time. Kevin Garnett, by the way, first team All-NBA. Let's see if anyone else. Garnett, All-Defensive first team, so Kevin Garnett with an outstanding year. Okay, so how did we do here with the Celtics? They are the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. They finished 58-24. They were tied with the Cavaliers for the best team in the East. And I'm just looking up their official record here. They were 66-16 back in 2008. So again, a drop off, not a crazy drop, 8 games there, but still a noticeable drop, more than 10%. And so, but it's hard to duplicate that success, I guess, even here in 2023 for the Celtics. But let's see if they're like the Bulls were earlier and just a monster of a playoff team. It's not looking good. Oh my gosh, they were knocked out in the first round by the 7 seed Brooklyn Nets. Mavericks, by the way, have finally made to the finals. The Nets made it all the way to the Final Four. They lost in 7 games to the number 1 seed Cleveland Cavaliers, so they almost knocked off the 1 and 2 seed in the East. But it's the Cavaliers who've won a few times now, and the Mavericks, and the Cavaliers will sweep in 4 games there over the Mavericks. So let's go see how Boston's statistics look, which, by the way, I apologize. I forgot to look at the stats for the Bulls, and I'm bummed about that too. I wanted to see how those looked. But nonetheless, I think the takeaway from that season was just that Jordan didn't really have an outstanding year, whereas Pippen did have a pretty good year. So let's see. A lot of minutes played by the Big Four. That's not a huge surprise there. Points per game pretty well spread out. 11 assists per game for Rondo. Advanced metrics. I love looking at these advanced metrics and how they kind of line up in today's NBA. But Garnett, outstanding. Pierce, outstanding. Really, all 3 of these players were great. I'm sorry, all 4 of these players. So no big surprise there. So really good team. Just, they tanked it in the playoffs. So huge bummer there by the Celtics. Real quick, as a little bonus, I was going to try to simulate with the Dallas Mavericks in the the Magic versus Bird era, but it doesn't let you. You can't actually sub out any teams here in these older eras. Now, we could probably go in and add them as an expansion team or something like that, but at least on this screen, you don't have that option. So a little bit of a bummer there. But nonetheless, this was really fun. If you have other ideas for videos like this, I think these are really cool. And I actually got this from a few people posting on the channel, kind of mentioning taking a look at simulations like this and that sort of thing. I've had a lot of people request specific things for eras. Let's dig in more into that. Let me know what you want to see. Let me know what you want to kind of get into, even if it's kind of just dissecting whether X, Y, or Z is going to work well, if there's some sustainability, because I know that's been a bit of a challenge for those who are in my era with things like courts not really updating properly. And, that's kind of one of the risks of kind of venturing into this really, really cool mode, but still one that's in its infancy here, the very first edition of the era's mode here that NBA 2K has introduced. So again, it's not without some sort of flaws that sometimes will pop up there that maybe could be immersion killing for you. So anyway, this was really fun. Again, thanks for the idea. Please continue to share your ideas. I'm Mike Lowe. I'm on Twitter at MikeLowe47, and thanks for subscribing to the channel. That's so cool. Thanks for liking the video, and give it a share if you found this useful, and we will be doing more in the future. So see you then.